Welcome to Living Chassidus. Together, let's live the Chassidus we learn. Okay, welcome everybody. My semi sort of, yes, you absolutely can. Let me turn this to me. Okay, so first and foremost, I want to say that today is a Farbrengen as part of the Systematic Avodah Initiative. So we make a program every year, 3 times a year actually, where there's daily readings to help you really accomplish all that you want to do throughout that time period, whether it's Elul and Tishrei, whether it's Sfira, like counting Sfira and counting the Eimer, or whether it is the Chassidish month of Kislev. So the way that it works is that for the Elul and Tishrei, everybody does a page of reading from this wonderful book called 60 Days by Rabbi Simon Jacobson. And it has 1 page of reading and it has an exercise, ask yourself, and an exercise for the day. We also provide everybody with a Living Chassidus journal where you keep all your answers to the questions. Then you can use it as your personal journal. Nobody checks it. It's between you and Hashem. And as part of that program, we have Farbrengens every other week to get inspiration, to keep the group going, to really boost up the program. And as part of that, we also entice your Nefesh Bahamas a little bit. So for everyone that did their reading and their at least 1 journal a week, you get 2 incredible prizes this week. So this week we have a bar of chocolate, because let's be honest here, who doesn't like chocolate? And we also have a Living Chassidus made writing to the Rebbe card. This is the size of a credit card, and you can put it in your wallet, you can put it on the back of your phone, and it gives you all the prompts of how to write to the Rebbe. So there's a pan, there's a michtav, and there's a duch, and you have all the prompts on there, how you get it started. I know many times people are asking, I'm about to write this type of letter, what do I write on the top? So now you have it in your wallet or in the back of your phone, always easily available for you to write to the Rebbe. With that, we want to encourage everybody that's here. We have a duch. We always last year we took a achlata to make a duch at our event. So if you can please sign your name. I'll pass that here for a second. And I want to congratulate our wonderful winners, or the people that earned their prize. Rachel Chana Tahir. Am I saying it correctly? She here? Tahir? Okay, great. Yosefa Wood Eisenberg, Shelby. Oh no, my phone broke yesterday, so I may have lost people's married names. So give me a second. Aronson, that's her married name. Okay, a lot of people went back to their single name. Sima Deshevsky, Esther Citrin, Gula Notek, Ruta Cohen, Brachi, Mishalovin, and Ariella Zuckerman. Great. Did I miss anyone? Oh, yeah. Ita Gravich. Yes. Yes, Tamar Flamer. See, and your sister. And if anybody else did, and if I missed you, I apologize. Yes, I said Ruta. Okay. With that, I want to congratulate you. Guys can come pick up your prize after the Farbrengen, and we have the great schus tonight to have one of our favorite speakers here at Living Chassidus. I don't think there's been a single SAI Elul and Tishrei where we haven't had the amazing opportunity to hear from Rabbi Glick. We're just, yeah. So if you don't know yet about him, he is a famous rabbi. He's the first Facebook rabbi, if I understand correctly. Probably the favorite Facebook rabbi, we'll put it that way. And now he does programming as part of, what's your...
My Judaism. I mean, it's basically just
Rabbi Yisroel Glick. Okay, awesome. So you can follow him, follow his videos. They're on YouTube and other social media. YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. So he's the bomb, and we love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I can put it
in. Okay, so we know that Elul is Rosh Tevis Ani Ladodi Vadodi Li, which means Ani Ladodi, I am to my beloved, Vadodi Li, my beloved is to me, which represents two phases or directions of movement, both in our relationship with Hashem. Ani Ladodi, the first is a movement from us towards Hashem, and then Vadodi Li is Hashem back towards us. In general, Chassidus talks a lot about the fact that Elul, the first part is Elul preparation, that's Ani Ladodi, that's where we have to take the initiative. And then Vadodi Li is Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and it's inspiring, and that's where the movement comes back to us. That's Hashem inspiring us, etc. As opposed to Chodesh Elul, where it's all on us. Now, the question becomes, what about the king is in the field? If the king is in the field, that sounds a bit like it's Vadodi Li. That sounds like in Chodesh Elul, there's this big initiative on Hashem's part. The truth is that there's a lot of what most of us probably think of when we hear about the king in the field, and what most of us have probably thought of and understood as being the king in the field when we've heard it every Elul since we're 2 years old, for those of us who've had the opportunity to hear about it for that long. It's not necessarily quite what the Alter Rebbe is using the mashal for, right? And the question also is, the king is in the field, Hashem is available and accessible. When is the king not in the field, right? We all know that you can always daven to Hashem, and Hashem always listens to our prayers, and Hashem is always available. So when is he not in the field? When is it that we can't access Hashem even if we want to? The truth is that if we look at the mashal, or what the Alter Rebbe is using this to clarify, as a metaphor to clarify, it's really not, the main point is not the access to Hashem. That's not really what the main point of the mashal is about. I want to take a step back first. And before we even go there, I want to take a minute to talk about time, the nature of time. Because every Yom Tov, as we approach Yom Tov, we're coming up to Rosh Hashanah. You learn Chassidus about Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is a special time, and it's amazing, and there are these revelations of divinity and Elokus, and most amazing things ever. And then Yom Kippur is the most amazing revelations, and then Sukkot, it's the most amazing revelations, and then Pesach's the most amazing revelations, and Shavuos, and it's just like, come on, really? Every Yom Tov, it's like, same thing, you market it a little differently for the Yom Tov. Obviously, Chas v'Shalom, that's not what it is. It's not marketing. So what is it that every time is the most special time? Like, what does that mean? How does it work? What's going on? Now, obviously, we understand it's not just marketing, but if it's not just marketing, then what is it? And it really boils down to understanding a little bit about the nature of time. What time is? And I'm going to compare time. We're going to talk about space, because time and space have a lot in common. They're sometimes referred to as space-time, as one entity, combined entity. But in Chassidus, we usually talk about Zman and Makom, time and space. They're two separate things. They're separate phenomena, but they're very similar. They're related, and they have a lot in common, right? We are not able, if you try to visualize, try to imagine an absence of time. We can't visualize an absence of time, a lack of time. It's not possible. We can't visualize an absence of space. We can visualize empty space. We can visualize a vacuum. You can't visualize a lack of space. No 3 dimensions. We're not capable of doing that. Why? Because, well, one way of looking at it is there isn't really such a thing. Like time and space, they just exist by definition, and they are the framework within which everything exists. And that's kind of true to a degree, but it's not entirely true. The real reason, Chassidus talks about the fact that we are not capable of visualizing an absence of time or an absence of space. And the Rebbe says the reason why we can't visualize an absence of time or an absence of space is because Hashem created us and designed us to exist inside of time and space. So that is the reality that we relate to. And we were designed to exist inside of time and space, and everything about us, our bodies, our brains, our minds, our souls, are all designed to exist within and to relate to reality as having time and space being an intrinsic part of reality. But do time and space just exist by default for Hashem? Does Hashem exist within time and space? Obviously not. And if we look at the name Mokim, right, one of the names that is used to refer to Hashem is Mokim. Right, what's the literal translation of the word Mokim? Mokim means place. Now, if we look at it, I'm going to take another translation that's more of a functional translation rather than just being a place. What's the point of a place? The point of a place, what space is, ultimately space is a location in which someone or something is or can be or may be in the future. Why would location be a name for Hashem? Seems just a little bit strange, right? If I had to ask you if you had to come up with some sort of name that represents what Hashem is, almost, but actually not necessarily. And that's exactly where we're going. So good point. I'm glad you brought it up. And it kind of is true, but it's not quite, it's true, but it's an incomplete truth. So if, let's say that we had and you know what, I should have done this as a thought experiment. Before starting this conversation, we should have gone around the table and asked everyone to, if you had to pick something as a name or a metaphor for Hashem, what would it be? I would bet $100 no one's going to say location, unless they've heard me do this bit before. So why is it? Now, obviously, if Hashem is called Makom, it does make sense, and there is a reason. What's the reason, and how does that make sense? So if we think about what a location is a space in which something is or can be. And the truth is, Chazal give us a very explicit and direct explanation for why Hashem is called Makom. It says in the Midrash, Lama nikrash bo Makom. Why is Hashem called location? I'm going to say the Hebrew, I'm going to translate it into English, and then we're going to unpack it because it's a bit heavy if you just do it directly. Mipnei shehu makomei shel olam. Because he, Hashem, is Makomei shel olam. Hashem is the location in which space exists. Ve'ein ha'olam makomei. Space is not the location in which Hashem exists. Now let's clarify what that means. Yes, mipnei shehu makomei shel olam, ve'ein ha'olam makomei. He is the location in which the universe exists, within which space exists. The universe, space, is not the location in which he exists, right? If your phone were to buzz now, which it won't, obviously, because it's on Do Not Disturb, but if it would, and you'd see a text that says, "What's your location?" ? There are a lot of correct responses you could use for that. We're in the basement of 750 online, where we could give the address of where we are. We could say we're in Crown Heights. That's accurate. Crown Heights is our location. Brooklyn is our location. New York City is our location. New York State's our location. United States of America is our location. North America, Northern Hemisphere, planet Earth, Milky Way galaxy, the universe, space. All of those things are our location right now. But they're not all equal. Brooklyn is the location in which Crown Heights exists. Crown Heights is not the location in which Brooklyn exists. They're both our location, but they're not equal. One is a broader location that is both the location for us and the location for our narrower location, which is in that broader location. And you can expand that out all the way. So whilst it's true that Crown Heights is our location and New York City and Northern Hemisphere, etc., all our location, perhaps if we wanted to ask what's our ultimate location is space, because space doesn't have a location. It is the ultimate location to an extent. Where did space come from? Right? Before Hashem created the world, there was no space. And again, it's not something we can visualize. We can visualize empty space. We can't visualize a lack of space, a lack of 3 dimensions. But whatever, we can accept that before Hashem created space, the phenomenon, there was no space. What was there? There was just Hashem. Hashem created space. Where did space come from? Hashem is absolutely infinite. If space didn't exist within Hashem, Hashem wouldn't be absolutely infinite. He would be infinite minus infinity minus space. Hashem is absolutely infinite, which means that space, by definition, exists within the infinity of Hashem. So space always existed in some sort of form, potential, whatever we want to call it, within the infinity of Hashem. Then when Hashem decided that he wanted to create the world, to have a dir b'tachtonim, etc., Hashem brought space into being as it is now, as we know it. So Hashem was here before space. Space existed in Hashem. And then Hashem brought space into being as it is now, still within Hashem, because Hashem was here before space. Space exists in a, whatever it is, basically in Hashem. Hashem was here first. He didn't go anywhere. It didn't disappear. So it's true that we say Hashem is truly everywhere. It's kind of true depending on how we define everywhere. If we define everywhere as, and most people don't usually get this technical about it, but if we want to say that the definition of everywhere is, and the truth is, if you look in a Hebrew English Siddur, whenever Hashem is referred to as Makom, how's it translated? Omnipresent. Omnipresent means present everywhere. Now, if we want to get a little bit more technical here and specific and say present in every point in space, which is ultimately what present everywhere means, omnipresent, it's not actually correct to say that Hashem is present in every point in space. It is correct to say, and this is the wording that's used in Kabbalah and that the Alter Rebbe quotes very often, which is leis asar ponui minei, there is no point in space from which Hashem is absent. That's true. But that's not because Hashem is present in that point in space. It's because that point in space is present in Hashem. Hashem was there first. So what is our location? Our location is Crown Heights. Crown Heights' location is Brooklyn, New York City, New York State, USA, Northern Hemisphere, North America, Northern Hemisphere, planet Earth, Milky Way galaxy, universe, space, Hashem. Hashem is the ultimate location. So whilst it's a bit of a strange thing to choose as a metaphor, not even a metaphor, maybe kind of, well, it's just a functional description of Hashem. Makom, yeah, if we call it location, Hashem is actually the ultimate location. Everything that exists, including space itself, exists inside Hashem. Hashem was there first. Hashem brought it into being. Same thing is true of time. To us, time, it just is. It's the nature of reality. True, it's the nature of the reality in which we exist as created by Hashem. So time is a creation, just like the table is, and just like we are. Space is a creation. Space exists within Hashem. Hashem is the location within which space exists. Hashem is the location within which time exists. They're just creations. And the same way that this table has specific characteristics, it has a specific length and width and materials that it's made out of, etc. Everything that exists has specific characteristics. And it's not just objects. Hashem created the concept of ideas, of logic. Logic has characteristics that make it logic. Logic is not a tomato, it's logic. So there are characteristics that define matter. There are characteristics that define logic. There are characteristics that define ideas. All of them have characteristics that define them as they are. And there are characteristics that define one idea differently from another idea, and one form of logic or one logical conclusion as different from another one. And there are characteristics that define nature that define time as opposed to space. And there are characteristics that define one point in space as opposed to another point in space. Right? This pen is here. It's not here. It's not here because this point in space is a different point in space to this one. This one's here and this one's here. There are characteristics that define them as different. There are characteristics that define all of time as different to space, and there are characteristics that define each point in time as different to each other point in time. Why does the Torah tell us to behave one way during the week and one way on Shabbos? Because the nature of the time that makes up Shabbos is different to the nature of time that makes up a weekday. And so the way that's appropriate to behave in the time of Shabbos is different to the way that's appropriate to behave in the time during the week. You want to make the most of a moment in time. The more we know about the specific characteristics of that time, of that moment in time and its nature, the better equipped we're going to be to make the most of it. And so every time we approach Yom Tov, and it's not just Yom Tov, Chassidus talks about weekdays versus Shabbos, and even Sundays versus Mondays versus Tuesdays, etc. Obviously, that's more specific within a category, but it's true. It's still a real thing, and there are characteristics that separate each hour of the day from each other, and the minutes, and the seconds, and the moments. But certainly weekdays from Shabbos, as we approach Shabbos, as we approach a Yom Tov, if we think of time as being a creation that Hashem brought into being as a framework for our existence, and different moments in time have different characteristics, different natures, different opportunities, and different ways we can make the most of them, it makes a lot of sense that each time we approach a new point in time, a point in time or a period of time that's unique, that has unique characteristics, we should want to know as much as we can about what makes this special, what makes it what it is, so we can make the most of it. And so yes, every time we approach a Yom Tov, every Yom Tov is special, and every Yom Tov does have things that make it unique and the most special with regard to the specific theme of that Yom Tov, the specific ways in which that Yom Tov is special. And Rosh Hashanah has things that Yom Kippur and Sukkot and Pesach and Shavuos don't. And that's true for each of them. So every Yom Tov, the Chassidus teaches us about what's special about that time so we can make the most of it. So now we're in Chodesh Elul. We have 30 days of being in this month of Elul. The more we know about the nature of this time, the better equipped we'll be, the more we'll be empowered to actually capitalize on this opportunity and make the most of it and take away what we can in a real way. So this brings us back to Ani Ladodi, and the king is in the field. The Alter Rebbe, generally we think about the king is in the field, which means the king is more accessible than what? Relative to the rest of the year. That's usually the perception that people have. If you look in the Mimer, this mashal, this metaphor of the king being in the field and more accessible, etc., originates from a Mimer of the Alter Rebbe in Likutei Torah. The Alter Rebbe uses this metaphor of the king in the field to resolve an issue that he has. What's this issue? It says in Kabbalah that for the month of Elul, the Yud Gimel Midas HaRachamim are behiskalos. That's the Hebrew terminology, which means what? Hashem's attributes of mercy are revealed there in full effect. AKA, Hashem is in a full, profound, and powerful state of feeling merciful and forgiving. This is not just he's in a merciful and forgiving mode. The Yud Gimel Midas HaRachamim are a very, very, very deep state of forgiving and mercifulness. And there's another time of the year when we know this to be true, that the Yud Gimel Midas HaRachamim are in effect, and that time of the year is Yom Kippur. Surprise. Yom HaKippurim, the Day of Atonement. Why? Because Hashem's attributes of mercy, Hashem's most profound feelings of mercy, of forgiveness, are in full effect, which is why Yom Kippur is Yom Kippur. And that brings along with it all the other things, the fasting, the not wearing leather shoes, etc. All these things are in place because of that. So Alter Rebbe says, I got a Kotz Kasha for you. We have now these attributes of mercy of Hashem the whole month of Elul, just like Yom Kippur, amazing. But hang on, why doesn't Elul look like Yom Kippur? Why aren't we fasting for a whole month? Why don't we not wear leather shoes for a whole month? Now, obviously, pragmatically, we couldn't fast for a month, but that's a side detail. We figure it out or whatever. That's not the reason why we don't, because we also we could not wear leather shoes for a month and we'd survive, especially today. So why is that not a thing? If Elul has the same state of mercy and forgiving from Hashem that is in effect on Yom Kippur, why does Elul look so different? And this is where the Alter Rebbe brings this metaphor of the king in the field, the king outside of the palace. Right? Imagine someone someone has something they need desperately, right? And we're talking about once upon a time kings, not, King of England today. It's basically a figurehead. But a king once upon a time, kings had, within the boundaries of nature, kings had complete and total power, authority, and control. They had complete and total control over all the resources, everything, the laws. They had the power to do anything they wanted to anyone, to let anyone off the hook, to grant anything to anyone that was within, the boundaries of nature. Kings could do anything, more or less. If there's something that someone wanted, the king was a pretty good bet if you could find a way to get through. The issue is that everybody wants to get hold of the king, and the king, assuming the king, let's say, is a real good, genuine king who actually cares about his, sees his role as a responsibility more than a source of power. Even a king who really does care about every single person who lives under his leadership, it's got a lot of things to do, a lot of responsibilities, a lot of things to take care of, a lot of things to oversee. You can't just sit around and chat with everybody who wants something. It's hard to get to see the king. Why? Because the king is low in supply and high in demand. It's very simple. It's basic, almost physics. You want to get in to see the king. If you're lucky enough to know someone who knows someone who knows someone who knows someone who knows the person who manages the king's calendar, maybe you can get an appointment in 3 years. Now, just imagine someone finally gets that appointment and, the day approaches and they start getting very nervous and excited and they've been waiting 3 years for this. I'm going to try to think about what the experience would be like. And it's not as, maybe the impact might not be quite as strong today for a number of reasons. On both ends, things have come closer together. But, Baruch Hashem, we're in a time where everybody is in a state of relative abundance, etc. But even today, if you would go into the palaces of the kings of old, they're unimaginably ornate and beautiful places, enormous. And imagine someone from a village back in the day who, lived in a place where there were a few huts with thatched roofs, and that was the community that they'd ever been exposed to. And then they get this appointment with the king and they turn up. They come to the gates at the front of the palace courtyard, and they've never seen gates this big. These gates are as big as their whole village. And that just the amount of gold just in the gates is more than they imagined existed in the world. And they come and there's a dozen guards at the gates, and they just can't even believe it. And they give their name, and the person managing the gate looks up and sees their names on the list and ushers them in. They come in and they're walking through the courtyard, and just the beauty, the plants, the way things are organized and coordinated. They can't even believe that such beauty exists, and they're already feeling overwhelmed. Then they get to the actual palace, and now imagine they thought that the gates of the courtyard were big and ornate and beautiful. Imagine when they get to the doors of the actual palace and they walk in, and they're inside the palace, and it just they've never would have imagined that such ornateness and beauty could even exist. And then they go, through the next doors, and as they go deeper and deeper into the palace, they just become more and more in awe of what they see, and more completely overwhelmed. And it gets very dramatic, and there are more and more guards, and the security increases and the beauty increases, and eventually they get into the throne room where the king's actually sitting. It's very possible by the time they get there, they're so overwhelmed and overcome with the drama and excitement of everything, they don't even remember what they wanted in the first place. Now contrast that with one day the king says, you know what, it's getting a lot. I need to catch my breath. I need some downtime. I need to let my nerves settle a little. I need to go out in some greenery and some open space. And so he dresses incognito in just a pair of pants and a shirt like any random person would wear. And he tells his guards, keep your distance. I don't want anyone to know who I am. They got to keep him safe, but don't make it too obvious. And he's going for a walk in the park, a walk in the fields. if someone else is going for a walk in the field, unless they are very, very familiar with the king's face, and or they're in the habit of staring into the face of every person they walk past in the park, in the field, it's very possible that they will just walk straight past them and have no idea they walked straight past the king. Now imagine this for a second. Think about this person who works so hard and get one connection, another connection, hooks up 12 stages of connections just to get an appointment to see the king in 3 years. And 2 months later, they've got 2 years and 10 months to go until their appointment. And they're going for a walk in the park. And the king happens to be going for a walk for downtime, and they walk straight past the king and have no idea they just walked past it. The king's in the field. He's not wearing his crown. He's not wearing his robes. He's not surrounded by any drama or excitement or any of this external stuff. Does he have any less capacity or power or authority or control to grant this person what they want? No. His authority is not in his clothes, it's in him. Now think about, just imagine it's something really important that this person wanted, needed, something that's going to change their life. Think about the magnitude of this lost opportunity, the chaval. This person, literally, they're waiting desperately to see the king in 2 years and 10 months, and they literally walk straight past the king while he's going for a walk, while he's more relaxed than usual, while he's in a better mood than usual. There's no one in between him and the king, and walk straight past him and have no idea. Think about that lost opportunity. Now imagine two people get a WhatsApp at the same time, right? Someone's walking through the park, through the field, and sees the king. It's like, oh my goodness, hang on, is that the king? And they run back and check, like, that's the king. And they WhatsApp, a couple of their friends, or maybe they have a group chat and they send a WhatsApp and they say, you're not going to believe this. The king is going for a walk through such and such a park or such and such field. And one person's like, you know what? I've always dreamt about going to the king's palace because I really I've heard that it's so beautiful. I really wanted to get a selfie in front of all of those paintings and that ornate stuff. And it's just like, the king's in the field. It's not going to help me get my selfie. It's not going to help me get my drama. I'm not interested. I didn't really want the king. I wanted the drama. Well, I'm going to stay home and keep reading my book or scrolling through Instagram, most likely, if that's what they're into. And you'll have someone else who thinks to themselves, oh my goodness, are you serious? I have something I want to deepen my connection to the king. I have something I really want from the king. This is my opportunity. And they get up and run and go see the king. The king has the same capacity to grant things. It's the same king. But that doesn't mean that it's the exact same situation as the king being in the throne room in the palace. It's not. One of these two situations has a lot of external things that come along with the king, and they're not unrelated. They are related to the fact that he's the king. It's natural that a king generally spends his time in his throne room, in his palace, surrounded by beauty and ornate, designs and wealth and guards and protection and lots of exciting drama. That is a natural environment for the king, but it's not the king. That's the environment in which the king is generally naturally found. The king himself is something completely separate from that. Anyone who gets to the king after going through all the guards and the courtyard and all of these rooms and everything, by the time they get to the king, they may be very inspired and overwhelmed, not actually because of the king, but because of all the drama around the king that's built them up and got them so excited and inspired. By the time they get to the king, they're flying on this inspiration that's actually not inspiration related to the king himself at all. It's related to all of the external things that surround the king. When we're in Shul on Yom Kippur, there are a lot of things that are related to the fact that Hashem is in a merciful mode, that Hashem's Yud Gimel Midas HaRachamim, Hashem's most profound and powerful sense of mercy and forgiveness is in full effect. And that puts us on parallel with angels, and we wear white and we say Baruch Shema out loud and we fast and we don't wear leather shoes, and all of these things are related in a very real way to the fact that Hashem's Yud Gimel Midas HaRachamim are in effect, and it's an opportunity for atonement. But ultimately, the opportunity of Yom Kippur is not a result of the fasting, and it's not a result of not wearing leather shoes, and it's not a result of saying Baruch Shem Kvod out loud or any of those things. Yes, we have to fast in order to access the atonement, but the atonement is not because of the fasting. It's because of us and Hashem, and this opportunity we have to have this direct interaction and closeness to Hashem. Not everybody can get in to see the king all the time, but when he's in the field, you go and see him. You have the same opportunity as when he's in the palace. If what you wanted was the drama, you know what? It's not there. And if you depend on the guards and all of the structural beauty and decorations and all of these things in order to feel inspired, and if you're going to rely on those things to feel inspired, then go see the king in the palace and wait for that, because then you'll have that inspiration. And if you see the king in the park, he's not going to have those things, and you're not going to feel the inspiration. But if someone has enough seichel, if someone has enough wisdom and insight to realize this is opportunity of a lifetime. The king is in the field, available, accessible. And yeah, there are no external things to excite me and inspire me and get me overwhelmed with inspiration. They're not there. And truth be told, probably in the Nimshal, all of us depend on those things to a degree, right? It's very easy and natural to end up feeling a deep sense of teshuvah in shul on Yom Kippur by Ne'ilah, or at home on Yom Kippur, whatever it is. Why? Because Yom Kippur does have all of this drama, and the fasting and the davening and all the things that we do, whatever it is, these things do contribute in terms of human nature to make us feel inspired and to make us feel inspired to do teshuvah. It's natural. The thing about Elul is we have the exact same opportunity. We have an entire month of access to the same capacity for forgiveness and mercy that we have on Yom Kippur. Same king. Difference is now the king is in the field. The guards are far away. There's no crown, there's no robes, there's no paintings, there's no decorations, there's no big golden arches, none of that stuff. Which means that if we need to feel some sort of motivation and inspiration to go out and meet the king in the park, that's not going to be done for us. It's on us. And this is the synthesis. With this mashal, with this metaphor, the Alter Rebbe brings together these two things that are both true at the same time. In the month of Elul, Hashem's profound state of forgiveness and mercy is in full effect for an entire month, just like Yom Kippur. Think about that opportunity. We have a full month of the same opportunity as Yom Kippur. The difference is that on Yom Kippur is when we all get to see the king in the palace. So there's lots of drama and excitement to inspire us. Now, same access, same king, same opportunity. The difference is now, ani ladoidi. The king's there. The opportunity is here, but the opportunity doesn't come with the free inspiration. Now the opportunity is available to us if we have the seichel to decide that we want to make the most of this opportunity and to then put in the effort to motivate and inspire ourselves to make the most of this opportunity. It's a lot easier to do genuine teshuvah in Shul on Yom Kippur than it is to do genuine teshuvah in the middle of a Wednesday in the middle of Elul. A lot easier. It's not that the teshuvah on Yom Kippur is not real. It's just that we had a whole infrastructure around us, building us up and exciting and inspiring us and getting us to a point where we were in a state in which it's natural, very natural to feel inspired to do teshuvah. In the month of Elul, we don't have that infrastructure. We don't have this infrastructure around us, supporting us and building us up and inspiring us and motivating us.
What's the seichel part? That we're doing earlier?
What's the seichel part?
Yeah, it's mushal, if you're going to the king's palace in 3 weeks, 4 weeks time, then what's the skip part that he's in a better mood, or that it's quicker? Because the fact that it's all dramatic, like what's wrong with that?
Okay, good. Okay, good question. So depending on how deep a place that question is coming from, because we could peel back many layers to that question. But ultimately, because on one hand, let's say once we get to Yom Kippur, we're at Yom Kippur and Elul's already in the past, so we're here now, right? So what's the big deal, right? Is that more or less your question? Like, okay, so Yom Kippur's coming, like we'll have it on Yom Kippur. So I would say a few things. Number one is, yes, it's sooner. Every moment, like earlier, counts. And number two is, on one hand, yes, the moment is infinite. That's true. But the infinity of every moment, the way that Hashem designed time and the universe and us and the interaction between us and how we experience time, is that every moment of time is limited in the way we experience. Or Yom Kippur doesn't stay forever. Once it comes and it ends. And our job, our neshamas are infinite and all of that's true, but our job is to express the infinity of our neshamas in the real, natural, limited things that make our life what it is, in the limited points in space and the limited points in time, etc. And our behavior and our ability to achieve things and to make changes and to develop and to grow happens within time. And 30 days of Elul is a much bigger opportunity than 1 day of Yom Kippur. It's 30 times as long. And imagine if when we get to Yom Kippur, we've already done 30 days of Yom Kippur, and now we're standing in Shul with all of that inspiration and infrastructure of that makes Yom Kippur what it is, pushing us and inspiring us and getting us excited and motivated and inspired to do Teshuvah on the back of already having taken advantage of 30 days of this just before Rosh Hashanah. Think about that opportunity, right? So let's say 1 day of Elul versus Yom Kippur, in a sense, is to a degree equal, let's say, if you inspire yourself in the month of Elul, but there's one of them versus 30. And then we could have 30, and then we get to that one with the 30 behind us, and actually talks in a number of places about the fact that within the mashal, imagine that, this person then gets their appointment. They went and they saw the king in the field, and they had a deep and meaningful conversation, and they asked for some things, and it was a really nice interaction. And then, 2 years and 10 months later, when it comes time for the scheduled appointment, they come and they see the king, and the king looks at the list of names of all the people he's going to see today. And then he sees that person's name, and it's like, I remember you. You came to see me when I was in the field where there was no drama, and you weren't going to get a selfie in my palace, and you still showed up. You come to the front of the line. So when we take advantage, when we put in the effort in the month of Elul to motivate and inspire ourselves to take advantage of this opportunity, then when we come to Yom Kippur, yes, Yom Kippur is an infinite opportunity for everyone, but I guess perhaps we could say not all infinite opportunities are equal, right? And for any given person, the opportunity they will have if they did take advantage of Elul is going to be different to the opportunity they would have had they not taken advantage of it. Right, so number one is, first of all, we have to be just grateful to the Alter Rebbe for the fact that we know about this. Because imagine the person, like we said, who desperately wants something from the king. Maybe they don't want something from the king. They really want to meet the king. They appreciate the king. They value the king, and they just want to go and say hi, see the king face to face, express their appreciation, have this interaction. And their friend was in the park and saw the king and went and spoke to him and never sent them the text. And then the person sees them later, like, you're never going to believe who I bumped into today, to the king. And we had such a nice chat, and it was like such a meaningful interaction. And I texted a couple of other people about it, but I forgot to text you to let you know that the king was there. Think of, yeah, that wouldn't be the nicest thing you'd want to hear from that friend. If this is something that's valuable to you, that information is the first step. So the Alter Rebbe, number one, is letting us know, by the way, the king's in the field. What does the king in the field mean? The primary point that the Alter Rebbe is coming to illustrate here with this mashal is not just the point of access, because on Yom Kippur, we all get to be in the palace anyway. The point is letting us know it doesn't feel like the king is in the field because he's not wearing his crown and he's not wearing his robes and there's no drama and there's no external stuff, but he's still the king. He's there. I'm letting you know he's there. You're just going to have to, it's ani l'doidi. It's on us now. In the month of Elul, the opportunity's there. On Yom Kippur, it's v'doidi li. Hashem is inspiring us. Hashem creates a system that motivates and inspires us to do teshuvah. Now in the month of Elul, it's actually the same opportunity. The difference is that now ani l'doidi. It's up to us to motivate and inspire ourselves to actually take advantage of this. And the fact is, it's easier said than done, right? We are human beings who relate better to chocolate than we do to the absolute infinity of Hashem, which we can understand is very big, but maybe sometimes it's a little too big to be more exciting than chocolate that's perfectly small and specific and has very, limited parameters that make it taste exactly as delicious as it does. Maybe we relate to that better than Hashem. And maybe if it's not chocolate, it's something else. But it's not so easy to actually feel inspired about Hashem, about the infinity of Hashem, etc. But this is what Chassidus is about. And this is exactly why it's ani l'doidi. It's on us. The king is in the field. But it's ani l'doidi. It's on us to get ourselves to a point where we actually care enough and are interested enough and motivated and inspired enough to actually make the most of that. Because the bottom line is, going to see the king in the field, it takes some effort. If you're on the couch in the middle of reading a really, really good book or whatever it is, that's your thing, that's your happy place, to stop and close the book and get up and go walk all the way to the park that maybe is on the other side of town. Like, it does take a lot of effort. Is it worth it to go see the king? Of course it's worth it. Doesn't mean it's not a lot of effort. And now, Hashem is obviously incomparably greater. It's a greater opportunity than a human king, but it's a greater opportunity because Hashem is absolutely infinite, which again, in a way, makes it harder to really feel that inspiration and excitement in a real human experiential way. And that's the ani l'doidi. It's on us to stop and ask ourselves. And I think ultimately this is what it boils down to asking ourselves some questions, asking each other questions. And I think for different people, the best way to do this is, there are sort of a number of ways of doing this. One of them is a good old Farbrengen, right? If you look at the Frierdiker Rebbe's description in his writings of what a Farbrengen was in Russia, it wasn't a bunch of people sitting around and someone sitting at the front talking at them. A Farbrengen was a couple of friends, 2, 3, 4, 5, however many friends, sitting around saying some l'chaim or not, and talking about life and talking about their personal struggles and the things that were going well and the things they were struggling with. That's what a Farbrengen was. It was friends sitting together and working things out together, helping each other figure out life. And for a lot of people, that's a very effective way to do this, is to sit down with a friend, with a couple of friends that you have a really deep and strong and safe connection with, and to ask these questions about, what is it that's actually ultimately important to us? And even maybe if the things that we know kind of are important to us, we don't feel they're important so much, well, maybe we need to ask ourselves, why is that? Are there things about the way we go about our day that are getting in the way of us feeling what we want to feel, of feeling the motivations and the priorities that we know up here are really true for us? Asking these questions, whether it's with a good friend or 2 or 3, whether it's journaling, whether it's talking to yourself. I confess I'm a very big talker to myself. I worked in a bakery for 5 years and I did the midnight shift for quite a while by myself. And they say that talking to yourself is the first sign of insanity, but if I didn't talk to myself then, I would be a lot more insane. I'm a big believer in that, and sometimes also speaking, sometimes I'm going to do a big talk, I'll practice it. And honestly, it can be a bit strange if you've never done it before and a bit uncomfortable. Sit in a room where there's no one else around, even in front of a mirror. It sounds weird. For some people, it can be helpful. And ask yourself the question. Have the conversation with yourself. It's a lot easier to think with some form of expression, whether it's writing, whether it's talking, something. It's a lot easier to think outside of our heads than inside of our heads. It's very easy to get distracted. It's very easy to get lost. It's not so easy to get things clear. And the moment we're expressing those things outside, whether it's writing, whether it's speech, whatever it is, it makes it a lot easier to make it tangible and clear. And whether, we talk to ourselves, ask ourselves the questions, write it down, talk to someone else. We ask ourselves these questions. Okay, what does this mean to me? What is this opportunity? What does this opportunity offer me? Am I inspired and excited? If not, why not? Are there things I can do to help myself get there, etc.? And the truth is, it can take a lot of effort. It's not such an easy thing to really dig through these questions and get to the real answers. And sometimes those questions lead us to further questions and further questions and further questions. But ultimately, if we're not feeling the inspiration that we know we believe that we should be, I mean, one thing could be that if someone believes something and they're not seeing it, maybe their beliefs are off, but our beliefs are not off because this is what Al Torah tells us. This is what Torah tells us. So then the question is, what's in the way of us feeling that? And it can be difficult, number one, because it's not always obvious. It's not always clear. And number two is sometimes it's not always so comfortable. But asking ourselves these questions is the pathway to resolving whatever it is that's in the way. And you know what? Maybe some people don't have the issue. Maybe some people can just turn that excitement and inspiration on in a very real way. And I'm jealous. What can I say? But all of us, this opportunity is here. For the rest of Elul, we have weeks. We have 2.5 weeks of Yom Kippur available to us before we even get to Rosh Hashanah. It's just that this is the king in the field, not the king in the palace. There's no infrastructure around to inspire us to feel like we want to connect and we want to do teshuvah and we want to turn things around and we want to get ourselves more on track than we have been. I don't want to say back on track because it's not binary. It's not either or. All of us are very much on track, but could be more on track. And we have a whole 2.5 weeks of the power of Yom Kippur, 24/7 for 2.5 weeks. It's just that here it's ani l'dodi. The responsibility is on us to inspire ourselves, to create, to do the things that are going to give us the inspiration and the excitement and the motivation that drama is not giving us until we get to Yom Kippur, and then it will, because then we're going to be in the palace. And this is the opportunity that we have. The nature of the time of the month of Elul is different to the nature of the time the rest of the year. Hashem's always available, but not all, let's say, levels of openness and attention are equal. Hashem's always available and listening, but maybe the volume's turned up a little now. I don't know if it's the right metaphor, and ultimately we have a very, very special opportunity. Just it doesn't seem like it. But we're fortunate enough, at least, that the Alter Rebbe lets us know that we do have this opportunity, that person walking past us in the field, or not past us, but that person walking in the field, in the park, is the king, same authority, same access to resources, same control, maybe even better mood than usual, more relaxed than usual. It's not quite as exciting. So now it's on us to excite ourselves, but if we do, it's an opportunity of a lifetime. Shana Tova Masuka.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you for the water.
Everyone can take 1 more second. Are you up for our
Yes.
living citizens?
I knew what I was getting myself in for.
I was gonna say, I'm like, I don't think this is new to you.
Nope.
Let's see. And everyone, I'm in the wrong side. So if I switch with you. Yay. There we go. That's the right side. Everybody can say hi. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Yay. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. As is Hashem, yes, thank you. We will have our next SAI for rain, not this coming Wednesday, but the Wednesday after that.